We'll call to order our regular meeting. And our first item is public comment, as usual, for items that are not going to be discussed later. Not seeing any.
Larry,
Yes.
Laura is here to get her permit approved for her senior project 5K.
Yes,
Is that
It's
on
on
the
here.
agenda? Okay,
you're on the agenda. Yes, you're number one.
okay, great.
Yeah. Okay, so not seeing public comment, we'll move on to our first item of business, which is the assembly permit for Nora. And so, Trevor, do you want to start us out, or does Nora want to start us out?
Nora, do you want to
best here?
maybe come or stand up and just explain what the event is? We've got your application in there. Maybe you can just walk them through what you're proposing and.
Sure, I actually brought some of my, I brought some of my flyers. So if you wanna look at
Great.
one, I'll go up there.
Yeah, pass one up there.
So this is part of my senior project. It is a breast cancer awareness 5K. It's gonna be May 3rd. And I'm working with the American Cancer Society. And we've already raised almost $1,000. So I just need an event permit. That is.
Yeah. You talked to us a little bit about what you had to do to get ready for this event and do like what you needed to do to satisfy the town.
Yeah, I've already talked to Chief Scott for, like safety for the runners. And I had to go through 3 different routes because he wasn't, I guess like I needed too many police officers for the first 2 routes, so I had to get them approved. And then once he approved it, I wasn't aware that I needed an event permit. So he was actually the one to let me know. So it's kind of short notice, but I got here. And I had to find a place to do it. And I'm doing it at the school, at the high school. And then it's gonna go out through Stock Farm Road. Yeah, Stock Farm Road. And then he suggested that we just go out there and then turn around. And then since it is a color run, I was surprised by the price of chalk. So I had to reach out to a few places. I have a meeting with the Rotary on Tuesday to see if they'll donate. But I had a company donate $500 for shirts. So
Wow.
yeah.
Can you tell us what that means for it to be a color run?
Yeah.
A color run is basically like you wear white shirts and then you run, and at different points in the run, you get like, it's gonna be pink chalk thrown at you, and the idea is that it colors the t-shirts so that when you're done, you have like,
You're covered in chalk.
yeah, exactly.
You're sweaty and covered in chalk. Yeah. But you look cool.
And you estimate about 40 people?
Well, right now, so the ticket is $25 per ticket, and I've raised, I think, $980. So I don't know exactly, I'm not really sure how much that is right now, but yeah.
The participation, I think is what he's asking us.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's
How many
like
people?
40 people.
Oh,
40
yeah.
people.
Yeah. What's the maximum for it? I know that
I don't think there is. Maximum.
We don't really know how.
Yeah, we don't really
Yeah, it's hard to, or can people sign up the day of, or do they have to be signed up at?
No, registration ends April 1st. So
But they'll come with sweat, so, yeah, cheerleaders.
Is it gonna be timed, or are people's timing themselves,
well,
or it's not timed?
I looked into doing timing, but it's really expensive. So I think what I've decided to do is have a volunteer kind of write down everybody's names, and then we're gonna use the scoreboards to kind of get their time. So
Yeah. Any other questions from the board?
I know
It
there's a
looks like, sorry, go ahead, Emery.
there's a
Okay.
contact at PTC that has the timer and like the lasers that they
Oh,
like to
really?
run out.
Emery, do you know who it is?
Pat actually now works at the high school, but I think he still has access, or Jamal might have it too.
okay.
It's good.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
I was just gonna say, it looks like a great event, Nora, and we've got approval from Scott, so I motion to approve the event. Whatever it's called. Permit, that's the word.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Can I keep this so I can sign my kid?
Yeah, you want another one?
Thank you. Yes, no, that's okay.
Motion carries.
Larry, do you want one? You run.
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make this, but thank you for thinking of me. Something about being covered in pink.
Feel free.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Big money.
Nora, do you need volunteers to help you at all?
I have reached out to some of the sophomores since they need volunteering hours. So I have a few right now.
Just trying to get applied for you while you're in public.
So the next item on our agenda is the VHCD grant for Kimball Library. This has been in front of the board quite a bit, as I think most or maybe all of you know, for quite a while. Has caused a lot of conversation in the community. We are discussing it tonight. Partially because we have a new board with new members who haven't necessarily followed in such detail as the rest of the board has the conversation that we've had up until this point. And it is something that we are going to need to consider up or down at some point. And I personally feel like it's important for us to get all the information out there sooner than later. And so that's the idea for this conversation this evening. I also feel like it's important to recognize that some of the conversations around this have been pretty intense. And I really hope that when we have these conversations tonight and going on for as long as we need to into the future, that everybody does so with generosity of spirit, acting in good faith, assuming the best in other people, whether they agree with them or not. I have my feelings about this. I know others have feelings which are not shared by me. And I think that this is one of those things where people can disagree and still be reasonable. You know, this is a policy question in front of the select board. The vast majority of policy questions that come in front of the select board end up with unanimous consent. That's the way we ordinarily do things. And it's usually pretty easy. Every once in a while, it's not. But for the sake of harmony on the board, for sake of harmony in our community, it is incredibly important that we all come to this in that spirit of generosity where we're thinking, how are we going to do this together? What are we going to find common ground on? We might not find common ground on everything, and that has to be okay. It has to be. Because we are our community. I know most of the people in this audience pretty well firsthand. And for those of you who I don't know well firsthand, there's probably just one or at most maybe two links that separate us. We're all in this together, right? And we need to work together well. And, you know, one of the things which occurred to me is that the amount of money involved in this grant, it's pretty big. Like $150,000 is a lot of money for our little town in some ways. It's also not a lot of money in other ways. And when I think about the context of our community having healthy discussions and healthy relationships amongst all of us, $150,000 compared to having a healthy community where we have mutual respect and awareness of each other as good-hearted human beings, that $150,000 is not a lot of money. And that the amount of damage that we can cause in our community by getting at each other's throats over this, it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. So I'll stop there. We'll have a conversation. I'm hoping that we'll have a fruitful conversation, that people will ask questions I will call on people. Because I think we need to have some sense of order through a conversation which has some delicacy to it. And
Please remember to state your name.
yes, precisely. And I think what I would like to do is start by opening up to members of the board if they have comments or even better questions about this process and what the grant means, how it works, just all the details that we would have to deal with going forward. And yeah, I think I'll stop right there.
I have a lot of questions. Obviously being new, I'm coming into this and trying to catch up on a lot of topics, so I apologize if some of these things are in previous minutes and notes, but, so I understand it's 150,000 that we can get in this grant. But this is tied to some historic preservation guidelines, correct? Like by accepting the grant, we have to. There's rules we then have to follow around historical pieces of our precious building and library, correct? So, can somebody speak to me a little bit more about kind of what those are in us accepting that grant and what that looks like in the future for us for those.
And I'm guessing there's probably going to be more than one possible response to this, but we'll start with.
Amy Grassnick, I'm the director of Kimball Library. I came to this meeting expecting that I would be asked to kind of lay the groundwork and the backstory.
I would love
And I
that.
would
It's okay with me.
ask whether the board is open to me providing that backstory before we dive into questions, because it may be that I'm able to answer those questions in a systematic way as I work through.
I think if you want to provide context, that's going to be helpful to this session, then that makes that sense.
So is the
Yeah.
board open to me doing that? Okay, great.
Thanks.
Sorry to Alyssa and Stephanie, as on Monday, I provided a written framework for folks who want to take notes. And alas, you don't have that, so I'll do my best to take my time and be very systematic and clear. So I went back through my notes and I had been thinking that it was 2015 when we first noticed that water was entering the attic through the cupola structure, and actually it was 2014, not 2015. I found pooled water on the attic floor and on the tempered glass that protects the stained glass panel that's in the main reading room. In 2015, the Preservation Trust of Vermont awarded us a Cincerbo grant. It's a small matching grant that allows an organization like the library to hire a historic preservation expert to do a preliminary condition assessment. So that was done in 2015. I mean, we awarded the grant in 2015. In May of 2017, we received that preliminary assessment. Because of the challenges accessing the exterior of the cupola in particular, you have to understand that it was kind of an arm's length view of the outside, viewing the copper cladding with no attempt to uncover what's underneath the copper cladding. It was a visual inspection. The ability to inspect the structure of the interior part of the structure of the cupola is much better. He can actually get up in there and climb around, which I have done many times. The gentleman who did that assessment discovered that at some point in the past before my time and at an undetermined time, clearly the cladding had become compromised because there was evidence that in order to try to seal up the seams between the pieces of the copper, an unknown kind of compound had been introduced in there to try to stick it together. And the exterior of the exterior surface had some kind of a coating put onto it. When I started work at the library in 2001 and went up and looked inside, and actually you can see in this first picture that's at the bottom left, the black staining in the interior surface that looks like charring is actually evidence of water damage over time. So how much of that preceded this attempted repair and how much post-dated, I don't know. But clearly at some point, the folks who were caring for the building noticed that the copper cladding was compromised. He offered, sorry, I should say, the guy who did the condition assessment in 2017 offered two potential approaches, both of which at the time seemed incredibly expensive and now seem incredibly cheap. The first suggestion was to try to do a similar enamel coating to the exterior surface, tighten up the seams between the pieces of the copper that make up the cladding, and kind of do a Band-Aid approach. And his guess at the time was that that would cost about $30,000. The other approach would be to go up there and replace the copper cladding. Take off what was already compromised and put up new. And at the time, the price tag on that was $130,000, $30. Again, at the time, that price tag was unimaginable. And the idea of raising enough money to undertake that project in 2017 was incredibly daunting. Nevertheless, in late 2017, as the select board and town manager of the time were putting together the capital needs or the capital, what do you call it, the capital improvement plan program? I'm not sure what it was called back then. Anyway, the library trustees started making requests that funding for, at least for the cheaper repair, be included in the town's planning for capital improvements. That went on for several years without it being included in the program. In 2021, at the height of COVID, and recognizing that in order to unlock any kind of grant funding, the Band-Aid approach was not going to do that. We would really need to consider the much more expensive, but historically, but more appropriate for historic preservation purposes. We needed to take the more expensive approach of replacing the copper cladding. So in 2021, the library trustees sought and received permission from the select board to apply for a $20,000 grant from the Vermont Division for Historic Preservation, anticipating that the total project to address the problems with the cupola would be about $200,000. And when the trustees asked for permission to get that grant, they also offered up $40,000 of funding that they controlled, and the select board pledged $140,000. So that was fantastic. We secured $200,000 toward the project. We put it out to bid in May of 2022. We got one bid, again, the height of COVID. You might remember that construction costs, personnel costs, everything was through the roof. The single bid we got was for $721,000. Again, that really took the wind out of our sails, because the difference between securing $200,000 and making up $500,000 difference was daunting.
And just for clarification, that was for
Yes.
the entire project to do
Yes.
it in the historical manner.
Correct. Yeah. Well, we had our work cut out for us, and so we got to work. In December of 2022, we got the fantastic news that among the congressionally directed spending requests that Senator Leahy included in the budget at the federal level was a $200,000 match. So the National Park Service is administering that through their Save America's Treasures grant. That doubled the pot of money that we had, $400,000, fantastic. In June of 2023, the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board exceeded our grant request. We put in a request for $100,000 for the project, and they awarded us $150,000. I had forgotten this little detail that in July of 2023, the select board at the time actually approved accepting that grant award. However, that agreement was never signed, and the historic preservation easement, I believe, was the sticking point.
So Amy, just to interrupt you for a moment, just to be clear, it was accepted with conditions, and the conditions were never met, and that's why it was never actually fully accepted. That's why
Okay.
it was never signed. Does that make sense?
The grant agreement was never signed.
Yeah.
The minutes don't indicate, the minutes indicate that the grant award was accepted, but don't
Doesn't talk about
specify
what-
anything more.
Okay.
My memory is that the desire of the select board was for the easement and the grant agreement to go to the town's attorney for review, but
Yeah.
that could be wrong.
That's
my memory.
That's fair, yeah.
Okay.
Can I, hey, Amy? Did I send you the minutes today?
You did.
And I tried to find a recording, but back then they didn't have those.
Can you
Uh,
state your name?
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Heather Bowman. I'm a library trustee. And so I was just looking over the minutes again today, and July of 2023. The select board heard their request to accept the grant. And according to the minutes, they accepted it. And actually, it was Stephanie, who made the motion to accept it, 4-0, so all in favor. And there was no stipulation that it was accepted with any conditions whatsoever. It just said.
Okay, so this was a great run. I felt really good about my grant writing chops at the end of this, this whole experience, because in February of 2024, we were awarded a Bruin grant by the Preservation Trust of Vermont. I cannot speak warmly and with more admiration about the Preservation Trust of Vermont, because in addition to the money that they gave toward this project, I am getting access to technical expertise that otherwise I would be lacking. So Jenna Lapachinsky is the grant administrator who has guided me not only through the requirements of the Bruin grant, but also the intricacies of the Save America's Treasures grants. The National Park Service, it's a gauntlet. It's complex. Anybody who's managed a federal grant, you know, there's a lot you need to know and a lot you need to do. Jenna has held my hand through all of it. She helped us secure the right architect to do the construction design, and they will also be doing the construction management for the project. She has access to so many people and so many resources that on my own, I don't have. So Preservation Trust of Vermont has been a godsend for this whole project. And they are relatively small contributors, only a $50,000 grant toward the overall project. But as I said, access to their knowledge and expertise has been, it's priceless. Okay, so we're caught up on all of the grants that we have secured so far. In February of 2025, the library board hired Baylor Riley Wilson Architects out of Albany to do the construction document and cost estimating. In addition to doing a deep dive on the cupola where they were up there with a lift for 2 days, peeling back bits of copper and testing the integrity of the wood inside and out. They identified additional work that needs to be attended to, flashing that is failing, the drip edges of the roof that are allowing water to run back into the fascia board. There are other things that need to be attended to and could fruitfully be done at the same time that the work on the cupola is being done. So the RFP that they are poised to publish includes the work on the cupola as a discrete project as required by our grant funders, with an alternate that will include the additional work that can be done, as I said, fruitfully while they're already up there in the sky. Their cost estimate for the repairs to the cupola is about $805,000. For the additional work is $90,000. The Baylor Riley Wilson, their fee is around, I want to say $70,000. So we're pushing up to $1 million for the project. Where are we now? So in December of 2025, after a great deal of discussion and after a training that the Preservation of Trust put on about running capital campaign, because we still have a lot of money left to raise, the Friends of Kimball Library agreed to create a capital campaign committee. And that committee has started doing its work. They've already raised $60,000. They need to know how much money is secured before they go out to potential donors with their hands out to say, we've already secured, well, we're not sure, $450,000 or possibly $600,000. Will you contribute to? So while they have, as I said, done the groundwork, identified potential donors, started working on how they're going to craft that ask, they need to know how much money they are trying to raise.
And that $60,000 does not include the $40,000 from the trustees pledge in 2021, that's separate.
Nope,
Or
and correct, the
separate.
library trustees,
two separate.
that they are two separate things, yes. The library trustees are elected, as you were.
Yeah.
To govern the library. The Friends of Kimball Library is an independent 501c3. And their goals are to raise money to benefit the library's services and to be advocates for the library. So they are absolutely a separate entity. Okay. February of this year, the National Park Service and the Vermont State Historic Preservation Officer completed their review of the construction documents and drawings that Baylor Riley Wilson put together for the project and gave them their stamp of approval, which is huge. It actually happened a couple of months earlier than it might have. And because of that, we are now poised to put this project out to bid. Like the documents are ready to go. We know which newspapers those legal ads are going to go into. Jenna and the folks at Baylor Riley Wilson have identified particular contractors they want to invite to bid. So we're ready to do this. We're ready to go. What we need to know though is how much money does the Friends Capital Campaign need to raise in order to get this project off the ground and completed by the end of 2026. For folks who were not here on Monday, unfortunately, I took the little image off. I discovered to my great dismay that after the rain on Sunday night into Monday morning, in addition to a puddle of water up on the attic floor, there was actually water damage in the area below the frescoed vault, so down below the stained glass panel into the woodwork. If you walk in and look back at the double swinging doors when you come in, you can see where water has come through, and that's bad. If that stuff starts getting damaged, then this project is not just $1 million project, it's, I don't even know how much more to deal with damage done to plaster and woodwork.
That was before the windstorm. That was just a couple of days ago. I think.
That was Monday morning is when I found it.
And just again, for clarifying, so back in 2017, when we discovered this, nothing has been done since then to this at all.
No, and it's not, you know how when you get a puddle in your house, you can see the water dripping through your ceiling or whatever? It's not at all visible where the water is coming in. The detailed assessment that Thaler Riley Wilson did when they were here during 2025, I think it was May of 2025, when they were climbing all over it, looking under all the cladding and exposing wood. There are multiple problems with the original copper up there. The seams are butt together rather than overlapped. And the reason I included this little picture at the bottom right, there's this elaborate stepping down that happens from the barrel down. There's reverse slope in several of those places. So instead of the water shedding off, it actually pools and then gets in through the seams. So we had considered restoring the existing copper cladding to save materials, to use the original material. That copper is actually in good shape. However, because the original techniques that were used would just lead to the same problems in the future, we went to the National Park Service with the plan instead to replace the copper cladding and to use techniques that will ensure the longevity and weather tightness of the structure. So that was a hard decision to make because I always want to use the original materials, but it did not make sense in this case.
That makes sense, yeah.
Amy, back when we were talking about the approval of the construction documents, is that a matter of these folks sort of like taking a look at the proposal in detail and basically saying, yeah, these people know what they're doing, this all looks like it makes sense and it fits in with what we know about how these things tend to go? Is that really what that's about?
Yes, so the National Park Service has staff whose job is to review proposals like this. So they got, in addition to the 8 or 9 pages of construction drawings, they got almost 300 pages of a project manual that goes through in fine detail what materials are used, what techniques are used. All of that is laid out it's not something that I would sit around and read.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece of information, because I don't think I had heard that before, that sort of instruction booklet for fixing the cupola is 300 pages
yeah.
long. And so that I think puts a lot of this in perspective in a way that I didn't necessarily have before. Because if you are doing a project that requires 300 pages of instructions, like there's probably a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And when the library board hired Thaler Riley Wilson, it was after a very competitive bidding process. We got 5 proposals from different.
Was it 5? Do you remember?
It was 5 good ones.
Okay,
and then
that's
there
right,
were
that's right,
some
that's
right.
that were like,
Yeah,
no.
yes.
We
Thank you.
interviewed 3. Yeah, so all the way along, we've been meticulous about finding the right people to do the job. The, what they call the section 106 review, which is what the National Park Service, that's what that big, long process was. They're looking at standards set by the Secretary of the Interior to make sure that what is being proposed aligns with historic preservation techniques and is appropriate to the building and yeah. They're meticulous about what they will and will not accept. So I was delighted that it made it through on its first review.
So I'm assuming there's no way that the interior parts that like no one can see from the outside could be done in a more of a current day way versus what can be seen on the outside, because I completely appreciate having to keep that look on the outside, you know, in a historic manner, but could there be some cost savings by what's on the interior being a little more, use the word cheap, but I can't think of another word right now, resourceful, or I'm not sure what that is, but so it's obviously not, it's kind of a this way or this way. I'm guessing, okay.
And I'm not sure what would be less, I don't know what another option would be besides replacing the water damaged wood with wood.
Right. Yeah. I didn't know if in the historic, I haven't read the 300 pages, but in the historic way. Oh, we can't hear you.
You're on mute.
You're muted.
You're on mute.
Get a clue.
Thanks. Yeah, it automatically muted me when I started talking. So thank you very much. I do have a clue and I have a question because you said there's no other way to fix it, which is true if we accept these grants, and not only true for this project, but for 21 different items bulleted in the agreement, including the steps we talked about last night, that have to go through a historic preservation review, that we have to pay VHCB time to review it and make sure we're doing that right. I guess I would just like to understand when you say there's no other way than doing it this historic preservation way, what you exactly mean by that.
And you're doing
There's no way to fix a leak in a roof other than doing it, spending $1 million.
If there were a discrete point that we could point at and say that right there is the problem, perhaps. But the cladding itself, which is the skin that should protect the understructure, is failing in too many ways and is designed in such a way or was installed in such a way to continue causing problems in the future. So is there no other way to do it than the historic preservation way? I'm sure people could come up with all kinds of ideas about what could be done instead. But is that appropriate to this building that's on the National Register of Historic Places?
Yeah, and I think there's also a couple of different things maybe that are going on here, which are connected, but not necessarily the same, which is the current repair, which has to happen, and which, no matter what we do, is going to be an extensive repair, which is going to be requiring a lot of work, whether it's done to historic preservation standards or not. But then there's what I think Alyssa is talking about, which is accepting this grant compels the town for future repairs to be along with historic preservation standards, which can cause extra expense in the future that we don't necessarily know the magnitude of. Right? Do you think that's fair characterization?
I think that a select board not constituted of this, these current members agreed to historic preservation easements already that are required by the Save America's Treasures grant and the Boone grant from the Preservation Trust. Those are term grants, meaning they have a lifespan and then they're over. The VHCB grant is a perpetual easement. And I'm going to tell you why.
Can I stop you just for a second, because you said something I think which is really important, and I'm not sure everybody picked up on, because we have these two other grants that we have already accepted and signed, correct?
Yes,
That are in place. You
Yes.
are going to get the money for those two grants that you just described.
yes,
They're time limited in terms of the easement,
yes.
but we don't have those grants that be in front of us in terms of what what the conditions of those grants are.
I don't have that
And
easement in my hand,
so-
but it's
But
Same.
that's what I want, no, that's okay, that's my question is. I have the current grant in front of me, and like Alyssa quite accurately noted, there's a pretty long list of features of the building, and there's a series of exterior features which are specifically called out as covered underneath the grant easement, and then there's interior features which are also called out, a whole bunch of those, and then there's in fact features that are outside the building, which are also specified. And we would have to be working with Preservation Trust on all of them to do that. But what I think I'm hearing you say is that even if it's not word for word the same, that these other grants are covering these sorts of things as well, just not in perpetuity.
correct.
And could I just add, the reason that the perpetuity is important to me is that this grant also includes an inventory of a schedule of maintenance of all of these things that are going to be in this easement, perpetual easement that VHCB is going to hold. So I was looking at the capital expenditures that are just looking 5 years out, but it doesn't count when if we ever have to replace the windows, if we ever have to do anything to the walls, we have to stabilize the concrete floor. Is that going to cause problems to the walls or the bricks that then we're going to have to bring somebody else in? It's a can of worms.
So I'd like to,
If I may, to me, that just means that we have to work with Preservation Trust to have them
Which
look at.
means it's 5 times as expensive as figuring out how we can use local resources to figure out how to fix. We have many local craftsmen there's other options. I would love to look at this cupola. You can't even really see it up there. It would be, what if we took it down and made it something we could actually look at as a centerpiece in the middle of the library, or in a put it somewhere else that we could actually appreciate it instead of it causing $1 million problem.
I'd like to. I guess we could ask them how much it will add to the cost if to just refer to Preservation Trust and VHCB. I don't think it would quintuple the cost.
We have to, the library has to submit an inventory of all of the future costs and maintenance and expected repairs related to the easement before they get this $150,000. That has to include estimates of what else is going to be needed in the next 10 to 20 years. In a perpetual easement, it's not just 5 years.
Okay. That's just a list of things that are coming down the pipe, which we should be doing anyway.
Right. And what I'm saying is, how much does it cost to replace windows if we are able to shop around and replace them the most efficient way possible? And how much does it cost to hire an expert in historic preservation to do the time period windows that are in the building right now?
I'd like to pause us for one moment, because I saw some pretty intense reactions from some members of the audience. And I just want to remind folks that this is exactly why we're having this conversation, so that we can hear everybody's ideas and we can evaluate them with an open mind, right? We can give people the opportunity to say what they think without being afraid of a response. And I think that is exactly the conversation that we need to have if we're going to make a decision that is the best decision that we can make. So as we move forward in this conversation, we're going to hear from the select board members all first. So folks who are in the audience, for now, please hold your questions. We will get to you, but we're going to have a select board conversation first. When those questions are done, entertain questions from people in the audience, but I also just want to continue to insist that people come at this knowing that everybody is here because we care about what's going on in our community, that we all share that. And even if you disagree with a particular comment, even if you disagree in a very heartfelt way, that's great, but it can't be a sort of thing which erodes our conversation. And I hope we can continue to do that. Thank you.
So I'm just trying to find in here where it requires not just to reference or to get Preservation Trust's input, but where will it say like Preservation Trust will recommend or require the expert painter to come in, the painters that paint the state house that costs an arm and a leg, and say, you can only use these people. Will they do that?
I can let Amy answer. What does she think? After the approval process, right? We have a 300-page document of how we have to repair the cupola. What is the review process going to be? And I can find the number for you, Emery. I think it's one of the first few numbers in the, hold on. I mean, if you read the whole thing, that's what this whole grant agreement is about. It's the purpose, like, these purposes will be advanced by protecting the building, which has outstanding the features which are subject to perpetual protection under this grant include the building's facades, which are defined as the original exterior walls, foundation, elevations, roof lines, color, building materials, windows, doors, and roof. Of particular importance are the following significant exterior features as well, and the significant interior features and setting all as follows. I mean, have you read through this?
Yeah. I think as a matter of perspective, as the 300 pages, is it 300 burdensome hurdles, or is it 300 pages of expert guidance that's helping us in a complex problem? That's how I view it. If I get those 300 pages in front of me, I'll have a lovely weekend. I'm happy to do that. I do want to know where they're going to say, no, you can't go with this painter, you have to go with the one that costs 5 times more. I share that concern, but I also am from the perspective that regardless of this easement, we as a community already have the due responsibility of maintaining this building in a historic and beautiful context. Regardless, again, of the easement itself. I'll keep reading through this, but I can't find your concern, which I think is a valid concern.
I think we can all appreciate wanting to preserve the historic nature of this building. It's precious. It's a precious piece of our town history. I think a lot of us probably live in old homes. Mine's a 1780 or 1870, sorry, home. And there's ways I can repair it where I gut it and just do whatever I want, or there's ways I can try to preserve pieces of what's there, and oftentimes preserving what's there is a lot more expensive than sometimes just starting fresh. And I understand these are two very different things, but it helps me in my mind understand the cost aspect of it, and I think that's what Alyssa is trying to kind of point out, is that by agreeing to this $150,000, which yes, like Larry said, is a lot, but in $1 million is kind of not a lot, because it's a very small piece, but we're signing what feels like a lot of promises to that $150,000 of every future repair, like we're saying, being in a historic manner. That's how I'm feeling, and my kind of quick takeaway, because I'm really new to all this still, so.
Which is why we're having the conversation.
Yeah, which I really appreciate. So, yeah, we can keep talking.
Yeah. So,
I have-
Alyssa,
Stephanie, go ahead.
go ahead, Stephanie.
Amy, the project that you presented on Monday for the stairs, has that gone through historic preservation review to see if that, what if your plans for that would be, because in theory, we'll have the preservation would be the easements would be in effect by the time that you get to those stairs. So then we'd have to be in compliance with that as well. So has that gone through that review?
No, it has not gone through the review yet. The benefit, however, of having Thaler Riley Wilson, let me back up. I asked in December, the architect that did the work, the design work for the cupola, to do the design work as well for the repairs to the front porch. I think they have shown themselves to be very skilled at what they do. And so they have already drawn those documents up. They are ready for review. So those, I mean,
sorry, I thought there was a pause
They
there, but they
don't
have
have
not gone through historic preservation review at all, so.
They have not
So-
gone to the Preservation Trust yet, but they are ready to.
Okay, so if those went to review, then we would have more information, like if we couldn't get the brownstone like you're talking about, then they would have to come up with a new solution to that,
Mhm.
then to maintain the historic. Yeah, so.
Correct.
For clarification, Monday, I thought you said when those stairs were done, they weren't done in a historic way.
The treads themselves are not the original material.
Okay. So I didn't know
So
if
in-
that kind of like takes it out because it's already been modified in a different.
The entirety of the project, no.
Okay.
All that means is that the stair treads do not need to be replaced with the material that was used originally when the building was built.
According to whom?
That's part of the Secretary of the Interior's standards for historic preservation. Once you've introduced a new material and time has gone by, you don't have to back up then to the material that was originally there. You sort of broken the link.
And the stairs are not, I agree with Amy, the stairs are not specifically outlined. It's the sandstone trimming and the limestone blocks flanking the front stairs that are also part of the project that we talked about earlier
Yes.
this week. That are covered. That
Yes.
is what Amy is saying it needs to go through.
Thanks.
So if I may, I'd like to explain why I think it's a real benefit for the town to have access to the Preservation Trust's expertise forever for this building. Is that, or is the board amenable to that?
Please go ahead.
When I came to the library in 2001, I'd earned my master's in library science 4 years previously. And among the classes that I took to earn that degree was not construction management, was not facilities management. I came to this building with zero knowledge of how to care for it. And in the time that I've been there, I've overseen electrical work, the installation of a fire sprinkler system, drainage work, the renovation of, the young adult room, the renovation of an ADA compliant, I mean, I've done a lot of projects there. And every time I go through this, I wish that I had somebody that I could talk to who could make sure that I'm doing it right. The front porch, the front entryway that we're talking about, this will be the third time that I have to address it. The second time in 2014 that we did a rebuild on it, we hired absolutely the wrong person for the job, who did not follow the specifications, who was a total hack. And now we're paying the price for it. So you cannot expect that future library directors or future library boards are going to have any kind of experience managing a facility, managing a historic building, any kind of construction background. I've done my best with every single project that has been needed to keep that building useful for our public. And there are a few times that there are huge regrets. And that's because I did not know that I could rely on folks from Preservation Trust to help me figure out how to do the job right. So to me, having the Preservation Trust there to make sure that the projects are being done in the best way possible not only preserves the historic aspects of the building, keeps it useful for the public, but also means we don't have to go back in 10 years and do the project again because it was done badly. So that, as a person with her hands in the guts of the building over and over again, I feel huge gratitude to know that I can go to them and say, I've got this problem. What's my first step? Who are the right people to talk to? Who's got the right expertise for this job? Because that's what they do. I'm a library director. This facilities stuff is an important part of my job, but it's not the only part of my job. And yeah, so there you go. I would really rather have them behind us, knowing that they're going to guide us, than do it wrong.
I think probably the underlying problem here is the fact that there is no mechanism to help cover these costs. And so hear me out here for a second. So there's no system. So if we are going to have a historic building that we have to maintain, it's going to be incredibly expensive. We cannot put that burden on our taxpayers on a consistent basis. It's never, ever going to be a good option. And so what systems are being put in place in order to help maintain the building? You have Friends of the Library just starting a capital campaign. This has been a problem since 2017. And so we can't go backwards, but what are we going to do going forwards that's going to help make sure that there is some backing? If you're going to have a perpetual easement, you have to have a perpetual source of income that will help to offset these costs. You have two endowments that I know of that are about $1 million total, from what I can tell from your minutes. I haven't heard anything about them or how they could support it or how the Board of Trustees or the Friends of the Library could help grow those endowments to help support a historic building. We see a similar issue with Chandler, a town-owned building that is being ran by a nonprofit group. And they have done a great job of trying to figure out how to support those high needs of a historic building. And so what systems could be put into place to help support the library building?
My response to that is the fact that the library is on the National Register of Historic Places unlocks grants that otherwise we would not.
But clearly the grants aren't enough. So that's the problem is like, so clearly the grants are enough. Chandler's also accessing similar grants, but they're
Yeah.
making sure they have matches for those grants. They're making sure they have the extra funding that the grants aren't covering. And so that's not the answer. There has to be more.
Well, certainly we would welcome additional funding from the town's capital improvement program. Right now.
Once
it's
again,
a
that's coming from
huge-
taxpayers' money.
Yes,
And we
indeed.
can't
It is.
support these $1 million projects all the time, and they're only going to grow. And so there has to be another source. And so what systems are going to be put into place by the Board of Trustees to help support this building that will therefore help support perpetual easement?
I think I'm going to reiterate that the best sources of money that we have for this are going to be grants, always. The endowment that you referenced, Stephanie, has strict
Limits, guidelines.
thank you, guidelines for how much can be spent at any given time. And so that's capped at 4.5% of the trailing 36-month value. And that's a little bit more aggressive than many nonprofits take. They tend to go for more like 3.5% to 4%. And the purpose of that is to preserve the capital so that there is income in perpetuity. At this point, I think it's about $25,000 a year under those guidelines that can be pulled from that endowment. The other fund you mentioned was an unexpected gift from Tom McNair, who named Kimball Library as a beneficiary of an IRA. So when he passed, the library received a $200,000 IRA investment. And that money is not restricted in the same way. So at this point, I think the value of that is about $170,000, something like that. That's the source of the $40,000 that the library trustees are committing to this project. That also needs to take care of things like, well, what if we don't get the 2 grants that I'm applying for? If I don't, if my success is not continued and we don't get the T-Mobile grant for $50,000 toward the cupola, or I'm not successful in securing $150,000 or more from the HUD grant to rebuild the front porch, those funds need to come from somewhere. And so the library board's assets are not eternal. I'm having a hard time coming up with words here. Sorry, folks. There is an end to them. Once that McNair money is gone, it's gone.
Correct.
So
you're kind of making my point, Amy, though, is like what mechanism, what's going on right now isn't working. And so you have to create, if we want to have the library be able to stay true and strong for everyone for perpetuity, which is what we want, right? We have to create better systems, and leaning on tax dollar money is not the system to go to. Grants may or may not be there later on. We're seeing right now, even grants aren't enough to complete this project. So what is going to be the plan moving forward so we can create a stronger system that will help support the library building itself?
I think the word system and strategic planning is really important in this case. We did multiple times in my time here at the library, the question has been raised about what about creating a capital reserve fund for the library building? Right now, the library buildings needs are thrown in a big pot with all of the other municipal buildings, which is maybe that's better, maybe that's not better, I'm not sure. But without a strategic plan, you end up with an emergency. And so my urging to the select board is this is your opportunity to develop a strategic plan that is not based on deferred maintenance, resulting in emergencies and much higher costs, rather than maintaining all of the infrastructure in the town. That is not my job as the library director, and it's also not the job of the library board to figure out. That is your remit, and it's a big one. It's overwhelming. And I will say that in my time here, again, 24 years, I have never seen a strategic approach taken toward maintaining the town's infrastructure, from highways to wastewater treatment, to the various buildings, to the pool. Those things have been taken on, from my perspective, when there's been a pressing need rather than managed in a strategic way. So I guess I put that question back to you, Stephanie.
So Amy, you're saying that it's not the job of the Board of Trustees of the library to take care of the building, is what you're saying? That's not your job?
What I said was, it's not in the remit of the library board to figure out the strategic plan toward maintaining all of the
I'm
municipality.
not talking about all the municipality buildings. I'm talking about the library building itself. And so you have the Friends of the Library doing a capital campaign now. Why has that not started earlier? And what is the plan moving forward to make sure that that remains a thing that happens all the time and is stronger to help maintain the building?
So I'm curious, Stephanie, what other departments in the town are required to undertake a capital campaign?
Which
In
other
order to
departments in the
maintain
town
the
have a Board of Trustees to oversee it?
Yeah, so I'd like to jump in here and
Yeah.
point out something which I think I pointed out at a previous meeting, which is that we are in this really weird spot where the library board and the select board have overlapping responsibility for the library. And it is not clear where one board's authority starts and where the other one stops. And so we have this gray area, and we're feeling it right now. It's causing conflict. And it's not because of anything anybody in this room or online has done. It's because of the structure of the system that we are finding ourselves in. And one of our challenges here is figuring out how we are going to work through this unfortunate situation that we are all in together in a way which is healthy and respectful, and coming up with maybe creative solutions. And we just need to keep listening to each other. We need to ask each other hard questions. We need to be willing to hear things which maybe we don't want to hear on both sides. And in that spirit, move forward in a way that we find ourselves on the other side of this in a much healthier place. What will that look like at the end? I don't know. If I had the answer, I would have given it to you already. But this is our challenge together. And it's something that we will need to work on together. And what we're feeling, what we're hearing right now is part of this position that we are in because of a structure that has been imposed upon us from a long time ago.
And I guess I feel like we definitely need better strategic planning for our facilities, and this is, for Emery and I, it's our first day. So we haven't fixed that yet, obviously, or got that into place, and this timing of this is very unfortunate. But I'm not feeling comfortable agreeing to something that's locking us into a forever commitment of doing things in this historical way, and that some of it's just my newness and I'm just not
I'm
ready
not
to.
expecting we're gonna make a decision
Yeah.
tonight.
Okay, well, seems like we need to. That's the
No,
vibe I'm getting.
That's,
It's been 10
this
years,
is a discussion. This is meant to provide a framework for common understanding.
Okay,
And a place where we can have a fresh dialogue, starting from a new place with a new select board, with some new library board members. Like, this is really, in my mind, a reset of this whole conversation so that we can fall together again, find ourselves in a really good place where, like I said earlier, we might not get to a spot where everybody feels equally good about where we are. That's just the nature of reality sometimes. But if we can get to a spot where everybody always knows that their ideas were heard earnestly by everybody involved, that everybody's ideas were taken seriously, that everybody came to this with an open mind, and that we were all trying together to figure it out. Hopefully we get to a spot where we all agree that is the goal. We might not quite get there, but the way that we go through the process to get there is incredibly important. And I think Amy has another thought.
I want to point out something about the historic preservation easement. Please remember that not every aspect of the building and its systems are included in that easement. There are parts of it that are called out, the historic finishes, the fine woodwork, the plaster, the exterior of the building, but it does not mean that the next time I need to put a new toilet in, I have to get permission from the preservation trust, or the next time we decide to do electrical work or. So that's point number one. What was point number two? Oh, point number two. Karen Freeman, who's the grant administrator, she has a fancier title, which I can't remember off the top of my head. And Elizabeth Egan, who is the general counsel for VHCB, welcomes conversations and questions from all of the members of the select board. They understand these documents inside and out. They can answer your questions in a way that I cannot, because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a historic preservation expert. So if you're unsatisfied with my answers, which I totally get it, please do talk to them. They want to talk to you. And just so you understand, the grant was awarded in 2023. I was able to secure an extension of the grant through 2027. They increased the grant award 50% without me asking for it. They are really committed to this project.
Amy, I want you to know that my concern over accepting this $150,000 has nothing to do of being critical of you and your work. I think you've done a great job of trying to find things that will work. When you read through this, there are red flags that I've highlighted and gone through and I'm trying to bring up, but I'm not a lawyer. Either are the program officers. I've been a grant manager, program officer as well. We did get our lawyer to go talk to their lawyers, and they did not. It's perfectly normal to have them strike things of concern off. They did not agree to our side agreement. That to me tells me that that is a red flag to me, that they're not willing to change. That for this $150,000, it's a perpetual easement, not just for the life of VHCB even. If VHCB and Preservation Trust go under, the easement transfers to whoever takes over. This is, it's crazy that we have 110,000 for 10 to 20 years, right? But we don't know what's going to happen in 30 years. There's going to be so many things that need fixed and need priorities. And we want to, I know everybody on this board wants to sustain the library. We want to see programs grow. I also personally would like you to get some kind of raise, but we won't get into that conversation. But we have to figure out how to do a budget together. This can't be 50 people in town that want it to right? We have a town of thousands of people. These are very expensive projects. And I had offered to join the fundraising committee and was told it was a conflict of interest. I would like to help try and figure out a different solution. I have very big concerns over a perpetual easement for I know $150,000, again, as we've said earlier today, is a lot of money, but it's not that much money when you're talking about how much is this building worth. And we're talking about an easement of not just the roof, not just the external, and no, it's not the toilet and it's not the stairs, but there's a long list of things that this covers. Why? Why are they not willing to take off some of that and meet us in the middle?
Because the point of it is to preserve it as a historical building and make it as well make sure it's part of the historical register. All of those factors are important to keep it historical. So it's, aside from the money, I think the main question here is whether we want our library to remain a historic building or we don't. That's what it boils down to. And I think Preservation Trust and VHCB will help us ensure that it remains a historic building in its historic nature. I think it's an important question. If this were in place in 2017, when this was first found out, well, not first found out, but when we knew that it would cost something, yeah. When we had an idea of what it would cost back in 2017, would they have put our feet to the fire and said, let's do this and let's do this now? So then we would have saved ourselves $700,000, $800,000 because we would have had experts that were attentive to the matter and helped us in that moment to save us money.
Emery, how would that save us $700,000 or $800,000?
Because it would have been repaired for 130.
That was never a cost. That was actually realistic though, correct? That was, we might be able to like put some powder on the outside and fix it. And then they decided that wasn't a proper fix, correct? So that number actually never would have happened.
The estimate for replacing the copper cladding was $130,000. That would have been the big project.
And between 2017 and now,
So
it's gotten worse.
Much more.
The question, it does boil down to that question. Do we want to maintain our library and its historic nature? I think yes.
And I think, given the documents, the grants that we've already accepted, we've decided that for the next 20 years, we are going to maintain this building as a historic structure. And what we're talking about now is, are we going to extend that commitment, not just for the next 20 years, but for essentially forever is probably a bit strong, but something close to forever after the next 20 years are up.
I think it's worth that we try for at least one building in our town. One of the two buildings that are our most unique and most important buildings. We've already let the East Valley Community Hall get close to falling apart. I don't want to see our library do the same.
with all due respect, Emery, the East Valley Hall is a whole nother story, and it came to us pretty much in disrespect or disrepair. I do want to point out Alyssa's point though too, that Amy, you asked what the select board's going to do, and both Alyssa and I have offered to help with your capital campaign, and both of us were rejected. So it's a little hard for me to kind of get that thrown in our face when we did reach out and tried to help. And I actually think Alyssa and I would both do a really good job at that campaign. Yeah, that's just really unfortunate that you want us to help, we offer to help, and then you say no.
I'd like to interject here and say that I don't expect a response from the board right now, but I do wonder, and I don't think we should go back and forth, he said, she said about what was offered and what was rejected. But I think we heard a clear offer, and I would like it if the library board would take a moment, maybe at their next meeting, and consider that offer and get back to us after you've had a chance to do that.
Well, just to clarify, the capital campaign is a project of the Friends of Kimball Library, which is an independent 501c3, separate from the library board. That is, the capital campaign is not being run by the Board of Trustees. That belongs to the Friends of Kimball Library.
That's fair. So,
And that was very intentional.
yeah, so if the Friends would consider, maybe they're not represented here, but we can sort of put out the word that there's other help being offered, and maybe it would make sense to work together a little more.
Is there any way, and I guess some folks spoke to the fact that we took this to our attorney and their attorney came and we couldn't agree on it, but can you speak to that a little bit?
At one point, coming out of one of the rounds, we'd asked for, see if we could do some sort of side agreement that spelled out a few different things. One of the concerns was because of some of the language in section 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 covered regular maintenance, where you gotta get permission, the perpetual easement, there was a sense that this could create a construct wherein it usurps local decision-making and capital planning for a future project. You have limited sources, that's an area of concern. Could we come up with a side agreement that said that essentially acknowledged that local decision-making had to have some kind of priority role in any sort of project selection? The dispute resolution pieces that are in here are still, I think, lacking. There's not a lot of process from our perspective. If there was a dispute or a disagreement, we could be liable for everything from the cost of the fix to reasonable attorney's fees without any real mechanism to push back on that. So that's what we were looking to kind of clarify at the end, were some of those pieces about.
Just speak up, please.
Oh, sorry. You're right, and I'm turned away from you.
Yeah.
I'm not eating my glasses this time, though. I've learned that one. Good. Yeah. And so those were the kind of things that we were looking for in that side agreement, so it would fit with this language after there'd been attempts to talk through some of them. Could they be added or amended to the grant agreements themselves? And the attorney was involved in providing feedback to that, but most of it traveled to and through my office, which has been covered extensively and
Yeah.
subject of
Trevor, do
requirement.
we, this makes me, I'm really glad we're having this conversation, because even though I've been involved in these conversations for a very long time, I'm still learning new things and have some more questions, and you just made me think of one, which is that we talked at length about what you just described.
Mhm.
How is what you described, how does that relate to the grant agreements that we already have in place for the library, like the $200,000 grant, or do we have, were like those concerns satisfied in those grants?
I think the ultimate difference between what we're talking about here and those is that perpetual is a heck of a lot longer than 20. And that's the difference, because once you get, 20 will go by fairly fast. We're already outside of the original Chandler agreement, for example, and that was about 25 years. And that happened pretty quickly. So I think the concern was tied up in the easement term. And because we'd also asked, could we have all of these same things in there, but you tied it to the useful life of the cupola as an asset. So maybe it's not 20 years, but it's, I don't know what that number should be. There was never one landed on, but if it's 50, 60, 80, 100, it's at least not forever. So we tried a few different things in those conversations and in the conversations in here to say, is there a different way to set this up? Hit the larger policy aims of the funding entities, because as they explained it when they've come in and they provided feedback, is, they're interested, we're providing money so that you protect this historic asset and you take care of it. So was there a way to find some kind of middle territory? Where we've landed is what you see after a few different rounds.
And is there any way that they ever give money out and, assist with future things without this type of easement that goes forever and ever, or like, is there ways around that?
I don't think
to work
so.
with them?
That would be a great question for them. Like I said, we're not gonna make a decision tonight, so you'll have the opportunity. You have some thoughts.
I don't have the answer to that beyond take your questions directly to Karen Freeman and Elizabeth Egan. They are best positioned to respond to that. EHCD does make grants to do things like planning or to do architectural and engineering work. They have money that they can distribute to help do the pre-planning for projects, as does the Preservation Trust. So having a relationship with these entities is very beneficial. The other thing I want to say is it's been incredibly frustrating to me and to the library board to not have access to any of the correspondence between the town's attorney and the HCB, to not be able to understand the concerns that the attorney has shared with the select board. The library board has not been privy to any of that, nor have I. And so it's been impossible for us really to understand what's going on under the hood. And that has caused, I think, a lot of frustration on both sides. So being kept out of the loop as a decision-making entity for the building that they are tasked with caring for has not been useful or helpful. And I think that's been a source of a great deal of frustration. That's where I started. So I'll end there too.
You know, I'm sorry that you felt so frustrated. Nobody wants to be in that position. My understanding of that situation is that any correspondence with the lawyer and VHCB has really reflected the concerns which you're just hearing tonight. I'm not, in my understanding, is that you know everything, you know everything that I know, for instance.
I thought you meant because I'm a librarian.
No. I'm not privileged. I've been, involved in this for this whole time, and I don't have information that's not anything in addition to what we've discussed publicly. So the fact that you've been frustrated, I think reflects more maybe some breakdown in communication, and I hope we don't point fingers because that doesn't matter. We're where we are right now. But I hope that moving forward, we can do so with this idea that we are transparent, that there's not information being withheld or nothing secret. That's always been my understanding. And moving forward, that it's my expectation that we will always have that. So I hear you. I hope that we can now, moving forward, be in a better place, not have those feelings. And if you are feeling that, please, at the very least, let me know and we'll figure it out. Good.
Perhaps it would, I feel like it would be useful to see even the town attorney's comments on the original easement. What did he see that seemed so worrisome to him? I would love to know in his words.
Is there a document like that exists?
Obviously is.
That's one question, but
Yeah.
while you think about that, the other thought I have is we're a new board. You're a new board. We are in this place right now, fresh. And what we're discussing right now is what is the information that we're going to use to make a decision. And what's on some piece of paper, which I honestly have not seen. I'm not sure that it's relevant at this point.
I think it's relevant in that both Alyssa and Stephanie have expressed a great deal of concern about what they see as red flags in the document. And I read the document with a very different eye, so those red flags are not apparent.
I believe that Stephanie and Alyssa can please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the concerns that they're expressing are their own, and that those are their concerns, and they're not, there's nothing else out there that is not being talked about in this moment that we're having. That's my understanding.
And my concerns come from my experience working for the state government in historically preserved buildings where we have faced daily annoyances and are not able to use spaces because of items inside the buildings that we can't move or change, right? So then the state is having to rent more space to make more space for us to return to the office. There's hundreds of reasons why I want the library to succeed. I want the roof to get fixed. The headaches that happen I don't think you're ready for them, Amy. I'm glad, I know the people at VHCB. I used to work in agriculture and worked with all of their programs that support conservation. It's the, I've already stated my concern. I appreciate the work you're doing. I wish we could think more creatively about the HUD grant, which I'm also, I mean, I can't believe there's not a match for a HUD grant.
Wait, Lisa, let's not get to the HUD grant yet. Let's not get there, let's get, I'm not sure we're gonna have time for the HUD grant tonight, but let's just, or maybe we will, we'll see, let's talk a little bit about it's whether it makes sense to go there or not, but we're already an hour and a half almost into this discussion. I want to bring a conversation back to a point which I made earlier, but I'm not sure that I expressed myself as well as I maybe could have, which is that the issues, and I want to know if I'm wrong, the issues that we're talking about, that you're making, the points that you're making, Alyssa, so well, we are bound by all of those right now for the next 20 years. So what we're talking about now is not how the library is going to be managed for the next 20 years. We're talking about what is going to happen 20 years in the future, and the problems that might occur 20 years from now. I just want to make sure that and everybody is really clear on that point. If I'm right, if I'm not right, then I have a very different picture of what's going on. Is that accurate? That we're talking about? That, like, all the things you just said, all the potential problems are things that we're gonna be facing in the next 20 years, no matter what, because we've already signed agreements with the 20-year easement. And that the problems that you're talking about are ones which we would be facing in the future, after 20 years,
Right, when it's none of our problems, so we're giving it to people 20 years from now to deal with, because then it won't matter to us, right? Like, I'll be around here hopefully for 20 years. I will not after that. I do not feel comfortable making a decision now that someone else is going to have to deal with 30, 40, 50 years from now.
Yes, exactly. So that's what I think we need to really be focused on, is what is the impact that this decision is going to make 20 years from now? And how do we wrestle with the effect that it's going to have that far in the future? And I think it's a really important question. But I don't think we've talked about it in quite this way. And I think that it makes sense to. And I know you people in the audience it's just killing me that I haven't called on you yet. And I'm really sorry, but I really want to give all the select board members a chance to speak before we go to the audience. What's it?
What do we need today? Like, is this just?
We are bringing the whole board up to speed on some of the intricacies of this issue and hearing what people who have different ideas and different perspectives and different information and different life experiences to bring to this. We want to hear what everybody has to say.
Can anyone speak to when this happened with Chandler, when they did their big capital campaign, like how that relationship with the town and grants, and did we sign on to things similar to this? And I'm kind of looking at the audience and folks that might have been around for that, but.
For Mark,
Mark on the spot, but
Yeah.
I can tell you that we have worked with Preservation Trust. The most recent grant we have was for a 15-year easement. And that went before the board, and there was a lot of back and forth and some stress for that. And we ended up with a 5-year agreement that replaced the 15-year that had much different terms because of the challenges that the board had. We have other grants that have different types of agreements, but there are no grants that I'm aware of where there's a perpetual easement. But there are plenty of grants that that have to follow very stringent standards, but none of which have a perpetual agreement
So
attached to.
how'd you do it? Like, how'd you get it in the 5 year, or even a 15 would feel a whole lot better than,
I will defer to Trevor. Trevor did that. He worked very hard with trusted. I mean, there was a lot of back and forth, so you have to ask Trevor.
We've done so many grants. I'm not trying to duck it. There's been so many grants for so many years. I don't remember exactly what it was. It's usually time of easement ties to amount of money. It's kind of the simplest metric, but I don't remember specifically with that one, if that was the trick.
yeah. Mark, do you know how much money that was for, that one?
50,000.
Yes, that's a third, but it's still only a third, really, like, it's not a million versus 50, you know. I feel like that's a really big ask still from them for $150,000.
Proportionally, it'd be 45 years, not
Yeah.
forever, right?
Still, that's better than forever.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Bethany, for reference, when VHPC or whatever their letters are, came and had a conversation, I asked if we could lower the amount down to like $90,000, if it would change the easement duration, and they said no. So we can't modify the amount of grant money that we would accept that would change the easement on this particular one.
does it have anything to do with the amount of money you already have pledged for the project?
I don't think they really gave much of a reason. They just said no.
I don't recall it being tied to pledge, but I wouldn't guarantee that.
This is a good point, time for me to bring up this point that I do have a concern with, that I think Stephanie and you would agree with. Attachment A, VHCB standard conditions 2, third sentence. VHCB reserves the right to reduce or change the terms of this award if grantee receives additional funding for the project that was not included in the budget submitted prior to VHCB board action, or if total project costs are less than anticipated at the time of board action. And we don't have the full grant. We don't have the full funding yet. So what this says is that if we get this awarded now, and then we get the awards later, VHCB has the right to reduce the amount that they give us. But it would still be in perpetuity, so they could give us $50,000, and the select board from 50 years from now would still have the same obligations.
Right.
The part I wanted to get rid
Right,
of.
which is another problem.
That's, to me, not entirely fair. And it would mean that we would have to get something needs to be clarified there, because I don't like that. At the same time, I still think it stands that the library needs to remain as a historical building regardless. If we're going to be extremely thoughtful of our future generations, keeping a building upright that's 100 years old as it is now versus a building that's 500 years old is exponentially more. I don't think we can think that far ahead. I don't know where we should stop in our thought process right now. I know we're thinking 20 years right now. And when I'm 52, what are things gonna be like now?
Excuse me for jumping in, and I know it's not,
No,
you're mistaken.
I think I really would just like to, even if you think he's mistaken, I don't want to open it up yet.
Okay, I think.
Because it's
you
not fair to
misread
the other
something.
people in the audience if I let you go.
Okay.
I'd like to learn where I'm mistaken, but
We'll have the opportunity.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
hold that thought. Trevor, this point that Emery just brought up about the grant possibly being reduced and the perpetuity provision remaining, does sound like a point of significance. Have we brought that up with the HCB yet? Is that something that we've asked them about? I don't recall it. I don't
That's
recall.
what I was referring to, Larry. When they came, I asked them how we could get out of the perpetual easement, if there's any way we could change any of the money or anything like that, and they said no.
No, this is different. This is saying that if we were to get additional grants, which we are trying to get, that they could then on their own, without consulting us, reduce the size of the award but we would still be locked into the agreement in perpetuity.
Right.
And my memory is not perfect, but I don't recall us discussing that particular point before, and I don't think we asked VHCD about it.
I
But
don't,
it
yeah, I
might,
don't
it might be
remember
worth,
that.
that might be
Correct.
worth talking with them about.
Yeah.
I think that is worth talking about.
At a minimum, it'd be worth getting clarity on it because it may also apply to if you have a project come in under what you expect once you've got the prices and maybe you got other funding, like you get a different congressionally directed spending award, and so now the amount that you need to close that gap is less, but then it's still the question of does the perpetual easement still apply?
I think it does, because I think that's the point, is that they want this building to remain forever. And personally, I do too. I want it to be a historic building. I want us to have at least one. And Chandler.
But
Sorry,
there's a sense of fairness which seems to be at stake here, which is that if we agree to it in perpetuity because of the size of the grant, and then they lower the size of the grant for whatever reason, that doesn't feel great.
Remember the section again? I didn't.
Yeah, attachment A, page Roman numeral and lowercase 1. I don't know why they do that.
Section 3.
Section 2 at the bottom of that page.
Oh, yeah.
VHCB standard conditions.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other comments from the board?
Larry, I just want to point out that we have other big things on our agenda here and we're at 7:15 right now.
Yeah, no, I know. But I did tell people I would give them a chance to talk, and I think we ought to do that. Dustin, I think you were the first one with your hand up.
It was Tamara.
It was Tamara.
It's almost always me.
Okay, so for the record,
Tamara Morgan, East Randolph. I appreciate your comments at the very beginning, Larry, about being respectful, etc. But I have experienced a lot of disrespect from the board in their actions,
I'm hoping that we're moving forward.
not per se in their.
I'm hoping that we're starting
speech.
fresh. That's the whole idea. I
That's-
don't want us
I
to look back.
understand that.
We're not looking back. We can rehash the past
Yeah.
in really unhealthy ways if we want to. I really don't want to go there.
You're not entirely a fresh board. I'll just put it that way
That's-
too.
That's. I want all of us together. That's part of what I'm hoping we
I
all
know.
do together, is that together we agree to move forward from this point on. Because if we want to debate the past, we could do that for a really long time and not settle anything. But if we can agree that we are all gonna go forward together from this point with open minds and an idea of being respectful, as you said, and in good faith, let people from now on show us that they're not willing to do that. And if they're not, then they're not. But from what I've heard so far this evening, I think people are doing that. That seems pretty clear to me. And so I don't see why we can't just continue to do that.
Okay, and then. Wait. Kind of question. There's been so many, who owns the building?
The town.
I rest my case. The town has a responsibility, and I was on the board I was on the trustees for 10 years. I was the treasurer. I never understood what the connection between the trustees, the select board, the town was in terms of maintaining the building. And as you said, it is a murky, I think the town got away with a really sweet deal. If we're having to kill ourselves to raise money with grant after grant after grant that Amy has become quite proficient at, and expect nothing except for matching amounts from the town. It's a physical plant that needs attention. I watched the elementary school get taken down. I happened to be at the library, looked out the window, saw the little crane. It came down like a house of cards. Our elementary school. I would not like that to happen to any other building in town, especially one that's on the National Historical Register, which I'm sure the elementary school was not. We don't have a capital plan. The town really has no such thing as an honest to God capital plan. And I think that's something that a lot of us would like to see go forward as well. Because we need.
I would say that that thought is shared widely inside and outside this building.
Yes.
We can't change what happened
Yep.
before us.
Oh, yeah, I know. And that's all I'll say for right this second.
Hang on.
Dustin Adam, the minute notes. I just had a couple things. We keep talking in circles about the burden of the historic easement and the cost associated with it. But, and before I go into my spiel, has anyone here actually talked to any other towns that have these historic easements, these perpetual easements on properties and have to work with the Preservation Trust of Vermont?
I have not yet. I'm working on setting up a time to meet with the HCB representatives that Amy was mentioned. I have not talked to anyone else in towns, any other select board members.
Because I have, spoiled. I called 7 towns, I think I talked to 4, I talked to people in Paulette, Roxbury, Royalton, and Hope. Paulette was interesting, because they have 2. Their library has a historic easement, a perpetual one, in the same vein as this one, from 2002. And I think their town hall has one from like 2006, 2008. And they've had no issue. None of these capital planning issues we're worried about in 24 years for the library. That's longer than the 20 years we've already signed up. They've had no issues. Karen, I think was the assessor that I talked with, and you can call her to verify this, says that they are Preservation Trust of Vermont understands that we are all small towns. Burlington's not asking for these. I don't think. We're asking for these grants and willing to take on these easements. And they are willing to work with that. They removed some metal, some like modern-ish metal thing that was put in their town hall, I think in like the 80s from the walls. And found these beautiful painted pieces behind them. And they have stabilized them and they have not fixed them and they don't have a time frame for fixing them. And PTV said, that's fine. Do it when you have the money. Do it right, take your time. There's no, we have to call the special enamel paint expert from Albany, New York. You just have to do it in the same time, the same styling. It's mostly cosmetic. And I think it's what we all want. I think it's what we should want forever. You're gonna rip down the cupola and put up a big sky dome. So, I don't want that. By the way, I think if you're really worried about this, you guys should talk to other towns. Right? You should get feedback, not just think about the potential consequences of this contract. You can do that with every contract. You can look at your auto bill, I'm sure find something very scary people always look at it. Except for Dan Grant, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, Julia Zimmerman. So I want to say I agree with what Emery said earlier, what Tamara said, what Dustin just said, that, I get that there may be some things in the contract itself that are concerning. Follow those up, by all means. For one thing, go ahead and talk to them about it. I think talking to the other towns that have worked with these people makes a ton of sense. If they're saying they're totally reasonable, it's been great working with them, then I think that should allay a significant amount of our fears, because the fears are hypothetical, right? So if we're talking to actual people with real world experience with this group and they're not having any problems, that should weigh very heavily against those hypothetical fears. And I think also, the town has a responsibility to maintain its infrastructure and its things that are of value. And we actually all do make decisions every day that will affect the people that are coming in the future.
not just the things we sign a contract that has the word in perpetuity, in perpetuity on it, you know, like. By letting the cupola fall into like a worse state of repair so that. The repairs needed now are worse than they would have been, you know, that was a decision made back then that affected people in the future, that happens all the time, so I don't think just. The fact that it's a decision that will affect people in the future should be a deterrent from making a decision, because in fact, any decision you make regarding the library will affect people in the future.
I just wanted, maybe I misheard, oh, Sally Penrod, maybe I misheard when you read from the document about, I thought you read that if the money, if the cost of the project is less, then they could reduce the grant.
It's, or, there are two things, they reserve the right to reduce the change. Or change the terms of this award if they receive additional funding, or if the total costs are less than anticipated, so it's.
I think that equates roughly to the same thing, that's what they're getting at, yes?
Well, the possibility that. You know, fingers crossed, someone donates $800,000 to us.
Yeah. Well, okay,
Then
but
they
that's-
would say, okay, we're gonna give you 10,000, but you're still obligated to the preservation easement. For as long as our country exists.
So
5 years, yeah, we'll see. But I think that is the point, is that we want our library to remain as it is. For as long as we can.
Okay, thanks.
I agree with you.
Amy's.
Pertinent to the concern that you have about the potential for VHCB to reduce the amount of the grant, the town could decline to take any money from them, in which case the agreement is null and void.
Great.
Thank you. Simon, do you have another word you want to hear?
Just the fact that that's a pretty normal. If you receive another grant for the same work. Generally, the grantor will reduce the sum of your grant. It depends on how they interlock.
But it's a
So
perpetuity.
it's not, the perpetuity clause is in, but I think, Emery's question was. What if we get more grants? Would they just yank it?
Sorry to interrupt, sorry, but to clarify here, we agree to this now. We still need to find $300,000 or whatever the amount is. We aren't beholden to this until we get the full 100% and projects. And the project starts. We can back out of this up until the project starts. Or do we have to, when we agree to this, regardless of. When are we able to back out?
I think that's a question to take to Elizabeth Egan.
Okay.
It's a grant by reimbursement.
Right,
If you don't take any money,
that makes sense.
That does make sense, but it would be good to hear that from.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Get it
But
from the
again,
source.
that's also my other biggest concern is that we're wanting to do this as soon as possible and we do not have the full amount. So what happens, like we can't start a $800,000 project without confirmation we have $800,000 to pay it back, right? Like that money comes from the town. The town would be stuck with the bill of the remainder if the library does not make up that gap in funding that we're talking about, which I know they're saying they're going to do. There's nothing that says you have to wait until you accept this grant to start a funding campaign. Like
Melissa,
we need the full
Melissa-
amount of money.
Alyssa, are we already in that spot though with the grants that we've already accepted?
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, but like what, but that's the point. Like I feel like we're getting told that the town is holding this up, but the money isn't there yet. So we're still trying to find a solution we
Right,
want to figure out a solution that works for everybody, that everyone feels comfortable with, at least, right? Like,
Right, but you made a specific point, right, which was that if we accept this grant and we can't fund the rest of it with fundraising, that the town will be required to make up the difference.
if
But
the work
what I- no,
starts.
But what I'm saying though is, aren't we already in that spot though? Like, we're already there because of the other preservation, of the other grants that we have already committed to that have the 20-year life cycle to them, like. if
No, I'm
we-
not referring to that. I'm saying the timeline. So we're getting ready to go out to bid. We can't start any work until we know we have the full amount of the project.
Well, right, okay, let's move on. Peter, you've been waiting.
Yeah, Peter Reed, my question is, in 20 years, if the HCP determines that you've no longer been maintaining this as a historic building, what is the consequence of that?
They sue it.
Do they
They could.
take the money back? And have, from what I understand, I don't think they've ever done that. I have once.
Well, my understanding is that no one's put them in that position.
Yeah, they've only been doing this for 40 years.
I've put them in that position a few times already, so
Oh, really? Where somebody has not,
no, where, I mean, I'm dealing with some grants that they have that are perpetual, and I mean, that they're. I mean, you get to a point where then it's. What are they gonna do? They're gonna ask you for the money back, basically. Is that?
my understanding is that that's part of the fear, is that the town would be financially responsible in some enforceable way.
Okay.
Yeah. Michael?
I think that,
Can you?
Michael Penrod, I think this all revolved, this whole issue and everything that we're talking about revolves around the perpetuity word. And it seems to me that with all the grants that Trevor's been involved in, I've never heard that this, whether it be Chandler or anything in town, has never ever come up. And I think it's so important because essentially what I'm hearing is that we're giving our authority, Randolph is giving our authority to another entity to force us to do something 50 years, 100 years, 200 years down the road. Will they do anything? Maybe not. But we could end up spending an awful lot of money with lawyers fighting if we take $150,000. And I sound like
You sound like you're against it.
yeah, I'm questioning giving up the authority for Randolph for $150,000. And I don't understand why there's no compromise on this entity's standpoint. And it has that been talked to them? Have our lawyers talked to them about that? And if they have, why are we unique? I mean, Chandler did a much bigger project years ago and they never ran into this. Why now?
So with that, we're now almost 2 hours, we're 2 hours into our meeting. I'm gonna close the public comment part of this discussion. If there's a select board member who feels strongly that there's a response that you would like to make, or there's something that people really need to hear, I think we should do it now, and then we'll end this part of the meeting.
We can follow up with VHCB, but my assumption is that it's in relationship to the specific type of grant this is. It's a rehabilitation and maintenance, right? It's so if, they typically, a lot of funders have different buckets of funds for different scales and sizes of projects. And my assumption, just from reading through the agreement and all of the legal language, is that it has to do with the fact that the roof and the replacing that piece is a big enough project in their mind that it then takes the whole building. Because even in the writing, it says that the staff can make a decision of what is or is not included in the easement. So it could just be an easement for the roof and exterior, right? But it's the roof, exterior, interior, the setting. So that's my guess, but we'll have to follow up with VHCB.
I know I said we're close, but you haven't had a chance to talk, so
Yeah,
do you have something quick?
Well, I had more to say before. This is very quick though.
And you are?
My name is Kit Langdell.
Yeah.
Are we to understand, my understanding is that this topic has been discussed in previous meetings and has been going on for a while. Are we to understand that in all that time, no one on the select board went to other towns who have these easements? I'm going back to Dustin's point.
I can't speak for everybody who was on the board at the time. I didn't contact other towns.
I find it kind of shocking, honestly. So it's a big deal. It's a lot of money at stake. There's obviously evidence that we could look at that exists in neighboring towns that we could draw our conclusions from about whether or not this is a good idea rather than hypothesizing and imagining things.
We're ready to be done now?
I'd like to make a comment as the treasurer on the board of trustees of the Kansas Library,
Sure. I have that.
and my name is Heather Bowman. So this board, select board, with some of the members that are still here, were on it in July of 2023. They voted to accept the $150,000 VHTV grant. That vote was unconditional. There were no mention of easement review, no conditions attached. It was just a clean 4-0 acceptance. Since then, the select board has added requirements that the grant doesn't ask for. First, a dispute resolution clause. VHCB's provided it. Then there was a side agreement about capital planning priorities. VHCB declined because that wasn't part of the deal. Each time that VHCB met a condition, a new one appeared. It's worth being clear about why VHCB's attorneys didn't want to sign the agreement. So the MOU that the town's lawyer came up with asked VHCB to accept obligations that it actually had no legal authority to take on, including an open-ended commitment to help the town of Randolph find future preservation funding indefinitely. It also would have subordinated all library funding, including grants the trustees pursue independently, and the capital campaign that's already underway, to town control. That's not a grant condition. That's a restructuring of library governance inserted into a document about a cupola. VHCB declined because any competent attorney would. The board never formally rescinded its 2023 vote. It has simply been stalled. VHCB's own attorney has characterized the town as difficult to deal with. Meanwhile, the library building, has been paying the price. 10 years of water intrusion through the exterior has now reached the interior. We are past the point where this was just a cupola problem. It is a building problem. The library has no capital reserve fund. It's never been permitted to maintain one. We have asked repeatedly. And there's no dedicated town allotment for maintaining this town-owned building, as has been talked about. So the cost doesn't just disappear, it accumulates. What we're looking at now is the bill for that gap that could have been repaired 10 years ago. This is exactly why historic easements exist. Professional guidance, early interventions, small problems, then small. Instead, we have a building in crisis and a grant that's been waiting for nearly 3 years. If the board has changed its mind about accepting the $150,000 VHCB grant, the honest path is a motion to rescind on the record with names attached.
Thank you for your comment. With that, we are really gonna stop talking about this. And I think it would be really great. I don't know how many of you are gonna stick around. The select board's gonna be here for quite a while still. I would like to take 5 minutes to get up and move my body around to prepare for this next bunch of agenda items. So it's 7:30, almost 7:40 right now. We'll pick up at 7:45 on those. Folks. We're a minute past when I said we'd start, so we're gonna resume our meeting with our annual tasks. So for those of you who don't have the agenda in front of you, we're gonna set a meeting schedule, designate a newspaper of record, consider the auditor's checklist, talk about an annual retreat, and talk about committee assignments for board members. And
Suggestion that we remove a few things from our agenda here, since we still have to meet with other people later on tonight.
I'm sorry, Stephanie, I couldn't hear what you said.
Can we remove some stuff because we have other stuff? We have people who are waiting for us, or?
We can certainly consider pushing things off to our next meeting. Trevor, do you have suggestions?
You've adopted the rules of procedure. This was just gonna be a review. What we could do is put that off. I can send you off the VLCT model version, which is your version, but with a lot more detail on some of the mechanical stuff.
Okay.
The people could be making a list of that. The town meeting recap, where we kind of go back through what worked, what didn't, what do we want to see differently. There's no reason that couldn't wait.
Right.
We could, inside the annual task, we could talk about the annual retreat and workshop at the next one and plan that, and then you could stay pretty compact with a meeting schedule, the newspaper of record, the auditor's checklist, and committee assignments. That should actually be pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then you could, if you wanted to, put off the permitting software contract, but I'm not anticipating that to be very long. It's sort of up, if you have lots of questions, then maybe that's one we'll keep moving forward as if, you know, money's in the approved budget, so. And then the tier 1B, we do have to take some action on this. That's one we've got to keep. And then that gets us to Julia, who's been waiting patiently as we've given her time updates.
Should we move that? Yeah.
You could move the agenda around, maybe get Julia, you can make adjustments in without having to go through the approval of the agenda process.
Well, all the other things, yeah, that makes sense. I'm gonna do that. Yeah.
Okay, so just for everybody online and in the room, we're going to take C through, do you want me to move those ones to another time and then we'll move the other ones later? I guess we'll do. I think this next one's gonna take you at least a half an hour to 45 minutes if we do VCDP.
If we do the
Next, so then you're probably already at 8:30 conservatively.
well, why don't we just reorder? And then we don't have to decide these other ones right now, right? We can
see where we're at.
We can see where we're at. We can do the ones like that you said are critical for tonight, and then we can see where people are at as we and how much time we have taken up.
And I think the critical, if we really boil it down, set a meeting schedule. Extend the appointments to the boards, committees, and commissions, and the tier 1B are the ones that probably have to move.
Yeah, so let's do those first in that order.
Unless you think we're gonna have a bond vote between now and April 9th. I don't know if we need to designate a newspaper for a refuge, so.
That one.
Well, that's easy.
Yeah.
And we'll use it anyway.
That's
as
an
it
easy
was.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
so just so you have some sense.
So we'll PS up.
Okay, so. We are moving I up in front of C in the interest of time. Julia Connell from VCDP is here. To go back through everything for new old members and assorted others that are here, and online. This is the Salisbury Square grant that started out as an $850,000 pass-through grant. To our ICDC, when we say that, it means the structure is such that the state takes what's usually federal money, passes it through the municipality and onto a sub-grantee, in this case, our ICDC. So it would be their project, they run it, they do the requisitions, we sign off, we're the formal grantee, but there are agreements between us and the state, between us and the state and the sub-grantee, and different layers of structure. We've been working on this on and off for a while. We got through part of it in the summer. There was a piece of it that got pulled out for further action, and it sent us on a different timeline. So what we are here tonight is to consider a grant that is essentially straight to the town functionally. Our ICDC remains listed as a sub-grantee, which preserves tax credits, which are pretty critical to the overall project funding. But will put the town in a position to be the one to take a more direct role in shuttling the requisitions, making final payments, doing some of the final payee stuff. But it facilitates this grant moving forward at this time. Julie will do a better job explaining in greater detail. The state has asked us to consider executive session under the contracts provision in Title I. So that would be the request here at this point, would be to consider executive session. It's the two motions listed in the agenda notes. You have to find that it's prudent and necessary, because a contract is a two motion requirement. And then the motion to go in. We would put everybody in the waiting room. You would invite Julie and I in with you as part of the motion. When you come back out, that's when you can discuss further and take any action. And so we put folks in the waiting room and ask them to leave for a second, and then everybody could come back. Any action has to happen after we've come back into executives or into the regular session.
But it's gonna be longer than a second.
Yeah, I think you'll need longer this second. I think looking at your faces, I did the quick description. We may need to do it a couple more times with Julia, who will do a better job than I will, but.
Here in the headlights.
Yeah, it was the furrowed brow. I'm like, I'll let Julia take it. She can do it better. But that's where we're at structurally and process wise. So it's up to you whether or not you want to do it, but we've got you queued up to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's our next step.
Mhm.
And we need to, we will invite you and
Julie Connell from VCDP. Do you want to?
Sure.
Right, and Mark, who's worked on the grant.
Stephanie, you're really good at this.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah. The motion you need is the one, number one under recommended action from the executive session one. So consider a motion to find that executive session is necessary and prudent. That premature general public knowledge would place the town at a disadvantage. This is statutorily required language before anybody asks me how we arrived at it.
I have to repeat that.
You can just say so moved and we record it in the minutes if you want.
So moved.
And inviting.
Well, that's the next one.
That's the next one.
Yeah.
Say something.
Second, decided can't hear anything.
Now there'll be a motion to enter executive session pursuant to one VSA section 313A1A, which is for consideration of contracts. And to invite Julie Connell of the Vermont Community Development Program, Mark Rosalbo, Economic Development Director, and myself to town, well, and in the motion will say town manager.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Are we ready for a motion?
I believe so.
Okay, so Trevor, I don't have with, me on the computer, I don't have it up, is a motion to accept the, grant agreement a proper motion to make, or is there more to it that we have to say?
To accept the, you want the grant amendment is part of it, because you accepted the earlier grant agreement, so this would be accepting the amendment to the grant agreement.
Okay, motion to accept the amendment to the grant agreement.
For second, you need a second.
Yes.
It's late.
Need a second.
Second. I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Julia.
Yes, I think we will.
Should we still on?
Yeah, she wanted to hear that answer.
Oh, yeah.
She can leave without an answer.
Yeah.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
That's what I need to do.
So then, we'll move on to setting our meeting schedule.
Peter, is that your coat back there?
Oh, yes, it is. I would have
I
figured that
noticed
out.
it earlier.
Motion to approve the meeting schedule as presented by Trevor.
I have a motion to proceed with a second for just as procedural.
I'm sorry, Trevor.
You have a motion, so procedurally, you'll see if there's a second, and then you can discuss in the in-between.
Can we repeat the motion?
To approve the calendar as presented, I guess, yeah.
So I know there has been some discussion about having more frequent select board meetings. I don't think we're prepared to discuss that tonight, but we can certainly discuss it.
It's fair.
At a later date.
For now, I'm gonna vote no.
So we have a motion and a second? All-
Yep, we do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1.
So to be a stickler, because we have,
We have people online, we need to do a roll call.
yeah.
Okay, and that would be the secretary, wouldn't it?
Usually.
Oh, wow.
You get a job.
Your turn, Melissa.
All right. Larry, what was your vote?
Yes.
Emery?
No.
Bethany?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
And I was a yes.
Just as a note, we can add specials or extras at any time for a different morning, and then if you do want to revisit it at some point, this will be the calendar unless or until you act upon it, I think is the way it works. That's all.
Yep. Newspaper of record?
We have one,
Motion to
that's
approve
the one we
payroll
use,
as
yeah.
our newspaper.
Second.
Yeah.
Favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Trevor, auditor's checklist?
Yeah, do you got one, I think here, let me see. It's filled out. Just do the screen share. So it's the same one you had filled out. This is a self-assessment where we go through each one of these different questions. Nothing unusual. It's essentially the same as various other years.
Is that in October?
What's that?
When is it? Do we submit this?
We're doing it now, so we'll submit it now, but yeah,
No.
it's,
The audit comes out.
the, 25 audit is for meeting with Bonnie, hopefully next week. Stephanie left, yeah. She got the updated timeline.
And what's our action that you expect here?
You are formally receiving, since that's what it asks you to sign, is that you have received.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Can I move to table the other topics on this checklist until another time?
Under business part C, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, the annual retreat and committee assignments.
I don't object to that.
It won't hurt anything.
And we're
So,
gonna-
is the correct action to motion to move it, or can we just move on without a motion?
You could make a motion to table them. There may be a
Is it tabling or
provision.
continuing?
We would table them so then, or to continue them to the next meeting, I guess you could do either one, I think the language is
Motion to
interchangeable.
postpone to the next meeting.
Yeah. Or to
Three options now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna motion to table these two topics until the next meeting.
It's,
Second.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Sometimes it's hard to hear.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Stephanie, did you have a question about what,
Well, it just seemed repetitive, because up here it's committee assignments for board members, but then down here, consider appointments to boards, committees, and commissions.
It'd be non-board member, non-select board.
that's, yes.
Gotcha, okay,
Yes,
thank
yes,
you.
Yep,
exactly.
different.
Thank you.
Okay, and so we're gonna put off D and E and F, right?
I think, sorry, Larry, for E, don't we have to say, that we are going to, continue the assignments as they are? So that way, the boards can still function?
Yeah. My concern is that the full list isn't ready, and if anybody has terms that expire at the end of March.
Oh, that's right, that's why it was actually on here, we weren't gonna go
Yeah.
through it all.
So if we just extend everybody through the end of April, there's no quorum committee, those types of issues with any of the groups that might
Yeah,
be impacted.
yes,
I don't
yes.
think there's gonna be anybody, but that gives us a little,
It just covers our bases.
yeah.
Yeah, good call, Stephanie.
Motion to extend current appointments of boards, committees, and commissions until the next meeting, next select board meeting in April.
Before we have a second, Ken has a.
Yes,
but
if you're extending for the budget committee, you're extending nobody.
yeah, I don't think we can actually extend the budget committee because the budget committee is not a creature of the select board.
But you have a liaison from the select board. to
We
the
do,
budget.
we do have a, yes, but that, we're not, that's not part of this,
That's filled
this
separately.
motion.
That's what?
It's a separate appointment. So the board appoints its liaisons under the prior item. This is for everybody, L2 volunteers for a board committee or commission.
Oh, so that was up on the C?
Right.
That's not here.
Did we have a second?
I had Alyssa early on, but
Well, I mean, I feel bad if there's people in the room that, but.
Well, he's looking for a liaison to the select board liaison to the budget committee, which we have already moved past.
Okay, alright. So you're just confirming if I still second?
I
guess
wasn't
yes.
sure I heard, I didn't recall hearing a second, that's all.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Sorry if there was confusion about that, Ken. I'm sorry, apologize.
Do we need a motion to move the town meeting recap to the next meeting?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, then we get to do
I'd like to
something.
motion to approve the award of the permitting software contract.
Second.
Wait, I have a public comment on that.
It comes after. We have to second it and then open up for discussion.
Okay, thank you.
I got lost. Do we not have a second yet?
I got Stephanie
I
moved.
just
Alyssa
did,
second.
but. yeah.
Okay, so Alyssa second, and Dustin, go ahead.
I just wanted to know if you guys reviewed the privacy policy for polymorphic.com. You seem to be very interested in reviewing contracts earlier, but I think this one's very important. It seems to be very wide, and they seem to want to market and distribute user data, users of the site, to all of the vendors they interact with. And do we know who those vendors are, what they do, et cetera? Have we actually thought about this, or are we just thinking, let's just have permitting software irregardless?
Mark, do you know about?
Well, I don't know what the privacy agreement is. I do know that It is a company that does similar work to Cloud Permit and OpenGov. And I can't answer that question directly. I don't know if the privacy or that language is different with the other agreements. I don't know, but so I don't have an answer to that question.
And Mark, I saw that it's seems to be an AI first company. Do we know what AI they're using on the back end to process our data?
I do not.
Okay.
I know that there are several towns and communities that use it. It comes, you know, it's given what they do and the reputation they have, it's no different really than but I don't know the answer specifically, but between OpenGov, Cloud Permit, and Polymorphic, they're all in the same sector in terms of services they provide, but we could get that information and give it to you if you'd like.
Yes, I am also quite concerned about the possibility of the information of people in this town who you are all supposed to serve and going to AI companies. We've seen a lot of what AI companies do in this country and the world, and frankly, I'm not impressed and certainly don't want my information in their hands.
This information would only be if you put in a permit application, then your information would be in the system. So if you prefer not to do that, you could walk into the office and fill out a paper form without a problem.
That's what it's saying.
Correct.
Not everyone will be aware of that. And I think that you should be keeping the consideration of people who are not as informed about the situation as we are and use a precautionary principle to protect them. This software sounds like it's being presented as, oh, it's going to make your life easier and more convenient. And that would be appealing to people, and they might not know that, in fact, there is actually a cost to that if they knew about, they might not want to agree with.
And what's our downside to putting this off until our next meeting?
I don't think there is a downside. We were looking to see if we could, there's money in the budget for the next fiscal year. We were going to try to see if we could prep everything so that we could be up and running even before that, which just pushes that part of the calendar to the right.
I will say it is an important component. The projects that we hired Rethink Local to do is an important component of the work that we're doing to not to simplify what we're doing with not just to make the process more efficient. It's also part of our goal of working with other towns around us and offering a service that's not being met by a number of towns around us. It's not just the software, but the relationships and the goals that we set forth when we brought Rethink in. But another month isn't going to be a deal breaker, certainly. But
sorry to interrupt, but Rethink is new to me. I'm not sure what this is.
Alex, sir.
Got it. Thanks.
And this has been a service that's been asked for by a lot of people. So this is a high demand service that folks are asked to provide, and that's why it's on the table.
Do those folks who are asking for it know what the cost is? Because hypothetically, if it weren't for...
disclaimer on there or something, I mean, if people want to use it, they can use it. People are using that type of stuff all the time. And so if they'd rather go paper form, then that's still a service we're providing.
Clarifying question. It says $9,000 year one and then $9,000 a year going forward. What's the distinction there? Is that an extra $9,000 every year?
That's the annual cost for the software.
Okay.
And it also disclosed there's a discount that will go to the town as we partner with other towns that subscribe to the service as well.
It sounds nice, but it also feels very multi-level markety there. Like,
you could completely ignore the 5% if you want. It's really about understanding what the costs are beyond 12 months. And what we're saying is that it's a $9,000 cost for at least 2 years. And in addition to that, there is there's a benefit of doing what we want to do anyway, which we don't have to take. It's just there to, so you have an understanding of what the nuts and bolts are of the agreement. My guess is they probably offer that to everybody, is that,
Sure.
you know.
I personally don't see the need for this. I worked in the zoning department. I know the workload. I think there's a benefit to doing it in-house. And keeping it in-house.
It is still in-house. What we're doing what Rethink Local is doing is for us to keep in-house going forward. It's not going somewhere else. We're not giving the contract to Polymorphic. We're using the software. We're using our people are still maintaining the relationships with the customer. We're managing the software, the Polymorphic software. We're using it for a number of different things to help with just the whole process of zoning, how we present that to the community, to allow people to, for instance, if they're going to apply for a permit for a porch, you know, this is the process that you'll go through. This is being done by most towns around us. We're many years behind. It's not different. Burlington does this. Several other towns do. And they use Cloud Permit. They use OpenGov. They use Polymorphic. I mean, the vast majority of towns have a component that allows people to do this electronically. Not only that, but most towns use it to pay for other things too. So this is not unusual.
I have two more questions and then I'll be done. One, that 5%, did Woodstock, are they gonna get that for recommending the software to us and demoing it for Alex?
They're not using, I don't know the answer to that. You have to ask Alex, but I don't think Woodstock is using Polymorphic. I think they've gone in a different direction, and I don't know what direction that is.
I thought in the agenda it said they demoed it for him, that's my bad then.
Oh.
He said Woodstock, yeah.
Oh, he did, okay. Oh, my bad.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, you know, second question, Mark, and not to come at you, Mark, but you said other towns are using software like this, but just to be clear, you've not read those other software's privacy policies or polymorphic, so we can't actually assess how similar or different they are.
You are right, but I will say that every time that I get a credit card, I don't read the privacy policy. I mean, the privacy policy is probably the most underread legal document in the United States. I mean, I don't think anybody reads. I mean, and I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying it's you know, it's something that we should do more of. But
well, Mark, it's underread by the users, which is what Kit pointed out earlier, but by the government's contracting these services, they should be read. Where I work, which is a municipality, we do read these statements. We have a larger team, we have an InfoSec team, I'll admit that, but we read all of the privacy statements and turn down vendors proposing things if they don't align with our strategic goals.
Understood.
Commitments to citizens.
Understood, yes.
Well, I was gonna make the same point that Dustin just did, is that an individual can make that choice for themselves to remain ignorant, but as representatives of thousands of people, you should be reviewing these policies before you do something that might put us in a situation that we as people who you are representing might not want to be in. Also in terms of this supposedly being something that a lot of people are asking for, I would bring that back to a former part of this evening, is that funding the library is something that a lot of people have been asking for. I was at a town hall meeting and it was quite apparent that wanting to fund the library was near unanimous. There were only one or two people in that entire room of hundreds of people who
I'm not sure
was not on board.
This is part of the conversation.
But anyway, yes.
I appreciate your point, and I'm personally glad that you are here making this point about the software, and Dustin, that you're making this point about the software. This is stuff that I'm not well familiar with. It's why for the whole time I've been on the select board, I've been grateful for people who show up to select board meetings, who know a lot more about stuff than I do. And so, given the input that you guys have given the board right now, it does make me feel uncomfortable moving forward at this moment. And I certainly wouldn't mind putting the brakes on it a bit and revisiting this at our next meeting. So,
How much have we compared other options in terms of companies to contract with?
Looks like 5 others. In the change to our new website, was there any discussion or investigation as to whether we could do this ourselves on our own website? Just applied for things on our website instead of.
The software will actually be embedded in the municipal website like it is with other municipal websites, where you go into the zoning page, and if you want to apply for a permit, you click on a button. As far as I know, and we can get clarification for this, but generally how it works is it's embedded in our website, and it goes through there, and then it goes to it's a cloud software, so that it goes to a cloud system, and then it's managed that way. It's much in the same manner as CRM is or other programs. But I think it would probably be appropriate to direct those questions.
Yeah, you create a user account, so you can sign up your household, and then you process your transactions.
I think that's a fair point.
All good questions.
I love it. I love that option, but just the same, because getting down here to leave my check is very difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
And I pay $2 every time I do it.
So do we just need to remove the motion then to move on, or what do we need to do right now to move on?
You could withdraw it, provided you and Alyssa both agree.
I'll withdraw my motion. Are we on to tier 1 now? Tier 1B?
Yes.
That would be it.
Okay, so Trevor, I feel like we've had plenty of community input. We've talked about this a lot. I don't feel like we need too much more discussion before moving forward with this. So I would make a motion to check off all the boxes and approve this.
I would second that.
Any other discussion?
I would just like.
Do we have to make the motion?
To include the other things that we edited last
Yeah.
night? Okay. I'll resend my motion and I'll make a new one. I motion to, oh sorry, what?
It might be easier to be like, if Bethany's agreeable to a friendly amendment, you could amend your motion to include.
Yes. I will motion to amend I motion to amend my motion to include all of the edits that were talked about last night, that were asked about last night.
So this is to add the 2 transition zones.
Yes.
I mean, they have to approve so, right?
Right. To the request before the word, really.
So we're doing 2 things then, right? It's a two-part motion where where we're making a motion to opt into tier 1B for all the areas that are eligible according to TORC. And we're also, but I thought that was the motion I thought that's the resolution that is in front, that's actually on our agenda.
Right, the resolution is about opting into tier 1, but you had talked last night at the special meeting about also asking for those 2 transition zones essentially to be added to the tier 1B areas.
Okay.
They could still not approve it.
Yeah, they're not going to.
Right.
So that would cover us in terms of they're in the tier 1B status, and if they don't approve, because they might not approve the other additions that were in whatever color pink they were last night, they still may take those out and shrink it.
At the lower line.
The lower line,
That's-
yeah. Yeah.
So our
This is really our
resolution
request.
this resolution is. Okay, sorry, I'm shut down. This resolution is really about, I guess I'm thinking in the context of our interactions with TORC, but it's not just that, is what you're saying. It's opting into tier 1B, which really telling T-Work to tell the LURB that we want to do it. And at the same time, we want to add in sort of a disclaimer saying, we also would like you to include these other areas, which you have so far declined to include. And that's to T-Work.
I think it's more that there was like, when he came with the map and presented the map at the beginning, there was a few parcels that were changed, and so those are the changes that we are looking to add, correct?
Oh, no,
Those would be built into the base of the form now, in terms of the request to the LURB. So what you'd be looking to add would be the 2 transition areas. So now the more that we talk through it, I'm sorry the hour's a little bit later, it may be better as 2 distinct motions. So maybe the first one is to formally recommend to T-Rourke that the transition zones be added as Tier 1B zones in the request to the Land Use Review Board. So then you cover that piece. And then you essentially adopt the Tier 1B municipal request form, which is where we opt in to that status.
So there was those 5 or 6 check boxes.
Yeah. So it might actually structurally be better that way.
Okay, I withdraw all my motions on this topic.
Me too.
Forever. I would like to make a new motion, I would like to motion to ask T-Rourke, or to demand that T-Rourke add the transition areas in the golden, orange, yellow onto our Tier 1B consideration map.
Demand seems really.
Well, I made it, it's 9:47, 9:48 now. We are now demanding things, Larry, in our motions.
They're still gonna say no anyways.
Yeah,
We
it
are
just doesn't
more
feel,
emphatic now,
it doesn't feel good, doesn't feel good.
Is there a second?
I would like to respectfully request that they add it or something like that. And we've been really clear, this just formalizes what we've already told them. So demanding just, I mean, these are human beings at T-Work who are really trying to do a good job. They're working with us and.
Is there a second? Does anyone have a second? Fine, I will amend my motion. Oh my God.
So it dies for lack of a second, so
Nicely.
just make a new one would be Robert's
Okay,
rules.
all right. I will motion to ask as nicely as possible to T-Work to please add, pretty please with a cherry on top, the orange, yellow, green transition parts to our map. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you as part of the motion.
Well, the transition zone that we were talking about, really were just those yellow/orange kind of areas. That's what we're.
I think we're ready for a vote.
Trevor, you got the gist of this?
Yes, I think I know where you're going.
Are we voting?
Do we have a second?
I seconded it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
I motion to accept opting into, how do we say this, Trevor? So that way I don't have to say it again. I motion to check up all of the boxes listed on the municipal request form and submit it to T-Rourke to be considered to opt into Tier 1B.
You'll be adopting the Tier 1B municipal request form
With all the eligible areas.
with all of the eligible areas.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. You don't have a management.
And I
report,
motion
do
to adjourn.
you? Is there something you really need to tell us for a manager's report? Okay. Second for that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned.